देखो भी आज का टॉपिक बहुत ज़्यादा इम्पोर्टेंट है। द गोल्डन रूल ऑफ पैटर्न्स। What is the golden rule? The golden rule is do unto others as you would have them do unto you. भी दूसरे बंदे के साथ वो ही करो जो आप चाहते हैं वो आपसे करे. Treat other people the same way you would like to be treated, which is not very different from Narayan Seva. Give the same food that you eat. Why eat basmati chawal and give tukda chawal for seva? Same thing. नारायण सेवा का मतलब होता है, नारायण सेवा means that you're seeing Narayan or God in the so-called Daridra Narayan, which is the poor people. You're not serving the poor people. You are taking this as an opportunity to serve God through the people. Would your neighbors want to be served? They have their own food, they don't need your service. So those people in need are giving you an opportunity to serve you. Serve you as what? As what? They're giving you an opportunity to serve God. How can you serve God? You want to serve God, right? How can you serve God? So the poor people give you an opportunity to serve God. What type of service should you do to them? The same service that you would like to receive from anybody, the same way, the same quality, the same everything. That's a golden rule of seva, right? So what is the golden rule of patterns? The golden rule of pattern is very interesting. There is a positive and the negative of it. Just like the old school film roll. So you have a negative of a film and you have a positive of a print. The positive of a film is the print. In digital media, there is no such thing as negative. And then you have the negative of the film, which is the opposite colors. So if it's a black and white film or black and white photo, the film or the negative would be opposite. Wherever there is dark, there is bright. Wherever there is bright, there will be dark. It's easier to see a pattern when it is a copy of it. Very hard to see a pattern when it is complete inverse. It is not just it is the inverse. It is the 1 divided by. Suppose you have 4 as a numeral, right? You can see 4 when you see another 4. You can say, oh yeah, here's another 4, here's another 4, here's another 4. How will you recognize 1 divided by 4? That's 0.25. Very hard to see an inverse of a 4. Very hard to recognize that 0.25 is the same pattern as 4 but inversed. Golden rule of patterns. No matter how bad the pattern has been to you, no matter how unfair the pattern has been to you, as we move on to our lives, those patterns continue to live through us unknowingly without our conscious knowledge. We may not be consciously aware that we are living those patterns, and worse, even hard to catch, is we may not know that we're living the inverse of a pattern. Phyllis Crystal would often ask us to do this exercise as part of the preparation of cutting the ties with our parents, is to have 2 pages. On one page write mother, on one page write father, and divide the page into 2 parts, negative on one side, positive on the other. What are the negative traits of your each parent that you remember? What are the positive qualities of each parent that you remember? And then circle, is it in me? Is it in me? Whether it is positive, whether it is negative. And there is another exercise. Did I copy those patterns or did I rebel those patterns, which is the opposite of it? Let's say your mother was stingy. Did you also become stingy? That means copying a pattern. Or did you become very loose with your money? That means you rebelled the pattern. We're not judging whether being stingy is good or not and being loose with money is bad. We're not judging. We're talking about pattern recognition here. Because at the time and situation and environments, your or our parents did what they thought was best for them in that situation, in that circumstance. It was relevant at that time. Us copying it completely removed from that time frame, usually about 30-year gap, different environment possibly, and a different place in the world possibly, and different social, economic, and political situations and various other pressures or the lack thereof. But the patterns continue to live through generation after generation after generation after generation if they are not recognized, if we are not aware of them, if we are not conscious of them, if we don't see those patterns living in our current life situations, or becoming aware that I have lived those patterns in the past in those situations. So, what does have to do with the golden rule of patterns? Apparently, allegedly, whatever was done onto us, we do onto others. Not only that, whatever was done to us, we welcome the same to be done to us again, even if it was painful, undesirable, and unacceptable. That is why people who go through some sort of abuse in their childhood or earlier part of their life, whether it is physical abuse, mental abuse, or emotional abuse, or any other type of abuse, somehow, since they have figured out how to deal with them, they don't mind having the perpetration of that abuse to continue even in their current time through different people or situations. Not only that, whatever abuse or pattern that was imposed onto them by previous generation, we allow the reliving of those patterns in our current life and also impose it on other people, people who we have influence, control, or convenience, or where we have power over them. Usually the people you love the most, unfortunately, because it is convenient and it is possible, because there is the least amount of resistance and there is less risk. So what is this negative golden rule negative pattern, or the positive negative of the golden rule of pattern? What about the negative? That one is the trickiest of all to catch, because you're reliving or living the complete inverse of it to your own detriment, all in the name of dharma or doing the right thing. That is why one has to be super careful about judging good, bad, right, wrong, because often the judgment comes from our old conditioning. Often the judgment comes from the eyes of others anyway. The judgment doesn't come from our own violation or our own experience or the being in the present moment. These patterns make us powerless in our ability not only to recognize our patterns, of course, the patterns camouflage themselves so they don't get recognized. Smoke and mirrors, that's Maya. That's illusion. That's lack of wisdom. That's giving up of wisdom. But also the patterns live by hiding behind the shield of so-called or allegedly doing the right thing, or being dharmic, or in this case, being a rebel. I would not do this wrong to somebody else. I would not do this wrong to someone because that wrong was done to me. The so-called the golden rule. I would not cause pain to somebody because I know how it pains. Right? So here we are trying to not live our patterns. One may think that, hey, that's a good thing. I am going inverse to my patterns. I know my patterns. I'm going opposite of them. Not realizing that living an opposite of pattern is actually living the pattern. Living the opposite of pattern is living the negative of the pattern. You're still living the pattern. You are still continue to be guided by the pattern. Living the negative of the pattern, you're still guided by the template of the pattern, the power of the pattern of the pattern. thinking, I have taken upon myself this moral duty of not perpetrating the wrong that was perpetrated upon me or upon somebody else for that matter. That is the negative of the golden rule of pattern. And it's extremely hard to recognize because it hides behind or camouflages itself in the name of doing the right thing, in the name of the negative of the ego. Oh, I shall not do any wrong or hurt somebody else. It hides behind the cloak of dharma. I wonder if that is what was going on with Prithviraj Chauhan. Prithviraj Chauhan, a very dharmic, very good, very capable, very strong Hindu king. Mark my words, I'm saying Hindu for a reason, not trying to be racist here. He did not want to give punishment of hanging or beheading Ghazni, Muhammad Ghazni, because he did not want to take the blame or so-called the sin of killing someone else, even though it was legal. It was the law of the land at that time that when an enemy who was attacking you is caught, you have the right to behead that person or at the very minimum put them in jail. Instead, Prithviraj Chauhan released that person, all in the name of greatness, that look how great Prithviraj Chauhan is, how dharmic Prithviraj Chauhan is, how large-hearted Prithviraj Chauhan is. Okay, he was dharmic, he was soft-hearted, and very commendable, very large-hearted. Fine. You can forgive him once, you can forgive him twice, you forgive him thrice. That should be the limit, right? Of being nice, gentle, soft, kind, and mushy and dharmic and so forth, that I don't want my hands to be bloodied. Or I don't want history to point fingers at me saying that Prithviraj Chauhan also was responsible for death, even if of a criminal, even if of someone who attacked. Prithviraj Chauhan hid behind the so-called dharma, under the cloak of Hinduism, that I am Hindu, very staunch Hindu. I don't want to be responsible for the death of this person because I want to go to heavens. But what happened? We all know Muhammad Ghazni, after each attack, became stronger and stronger and stronger and learned about the weaknesses of Prithviraj Chauhan, his kingdom, his army, his strategy, and so forth. What happened in the end? In the end, Muhammad Ghazni, who was basically a barbarian, he didn't have any dharma of his own. He was merciless barbarian. Because of the softness of Prithviraj Chauhan, Muhammad Ghazni ended up destroying thousands of temples, raping tens of thousands of women, and destroying so many homes. So indirectly, Prithviraj Chauhan was responsible for the deaths not just of one person that he should have done, but he ended up taking responsibility which he did not claim, of tens of thousands of lives and losing the kingdom of Bharat itself, all in the name of protecting Swadharma, my own dharma. I shall not perpetrate the wrong. This is the negative of the golden rule of the pattern. Very hard to recognize. Very hard to recognize. It is not easy to follow it either. Very hard to recognize.